I just remember feeling like anytime I could get my body away from his, I had to gasp for air. It felt like I was drowning almost.
2 years ago this month, while she was a junior at Michigan State, Eloise Mitchell says she was raped.
And I was in so much shock that I don't even think I fully processed it, but there were points where I truly felt like this was my last night on earth.
You thought you were going to die?
Yeah.
Her assailant, she said, another MSU student that she'd met on a dating app. They met in person just a few hours earlier.
And then the next thing I remember is sitting on my bed in shock, trying to figure out what happened, and then realizing that I was covered in bruises. And that's when I realized how bad it had been.
Like many victims of sexual assault, Eloise didn't report it at first. Who would believe her, she thought. But about 8 months later, she learned a friend of hers reported being assaulted by the same man. It was then she decided she had to come forward.
At the same time she filed a police report, Eloise filed a Title IX complaint with Michigan State's Office of Institutional Equity. It's how institutions like MSU hold accountable those who have committed acts of sexual harassment or violence. Students can be expelled. Faculty can be terminated. By now, Eloise's alleged assailant had graduated, but she still felt she owed it to herself to make a record of what happened.
They told me, look, we're going to try to do this, as quickly as possible, and they should come down with their ruling in about 60 days.
But 60 days came and went, and she'd heard nothing. Fall turned to winter, and by spring, still nothing.
This has totally torn my life into pieces, and I'm living with it every day, and I can't even get an email back telling me what the next step is going to be.
Just going through this process can be, for some people, even more traumatizing than the initial incident itself because there's so much uncertainty.
Liz Abdenauer is an attorney who specializes in Title IX cases. Before that, she worked in Michigan State's Title IX office until she was fired, she says, for complaining over how cases were handled. MSU says they fired Abdenauer for trying to undermine the head of the department. Today, she represents students with Title IX claims, including those against MSU.
The students that I work with regularly tell me, I'm losing sleep over this. I feel like my grades are suffering because I'm stressed about this. I had to go into therapy.
When John Engler took over as MSU president 2 years ago, he promised faster investigations of Title IX complaints, which at the time were averaging 80 days. But instead of going down, the numbers shot up.
Of the cases that you're handling now, have any of them been resolved within 80 days?
No.
100 days?
No.
200 days?
No.
300 days?
No.
At its worst, in 2018, MSU averaged nearly 200 days to complete a Title IX investigation. We asked repeatedly to interview anyone from MSU. They declined. But by phone, Rob Kent, a university vice president, said MSU has made great strides in resolving Title IX cases faster, hiring more staff in response to soaring complaints, with the new average falling from 190 days in 2018 to 118 last year. Still, in 2019, we found dozens of complaints stretching 200, 300, 500 days to complete or more. In total, of the more than 1,100 complaints resolved last year, 110 took at least 200 days to complete, including Eloise Mitchell's.
Yeah, it was 343 days between the initial complaint and the decision.
By then, she'd already graduated from Michigan State, so it didn't mean much when she learned their investigation concluded she was raped.
It felt like people weren't really listening to me. If you were listening to me, you would have some sense of urgency. You would realize how terrible this is.
Any day now, major changes to how Title IX cases are investigated will be announced by the Trump administration. One Michigan lawmaker says they'll make it harder for survivors to come forward. We'll tell you what concerns her most tomorrow on 7 Action News this morning at 6 a.m. I'm Ross Jones, 7 Action News.